Hello, NBA fans. Welcome to another edition of Kings Court, presented to you by www.sports-kings.com. I'm Andy Flint. With me today, I have Frank Santos. What's up, Frank?
All I know is that I got to see Matt Bonner and Michael Beasley play in playoff games in the same week. So, I mean, life's complete. What more do you want?
Frank the Tank. The other guy with us today, gracing us with his mustache, is Michael Prosser.
Guess who's back? Back again. Mikey's back. Tell a friend. That's right. I know you guys missed me last week. I do apologize, but work, it sucks.
And if you have kids, you should probably get them away from the screen because Michael's mustache is frightening.
Oh, but it's great. Also,
Michael, do you own a large white van?
I do not. I don't know how to drive. What, you guys thought I was kidding?
All right. I swear to God, one time, Michael broadcasted a show from inside of a car. So, who was driving?
No, my mom was driving.
Oh, okay.
Parked in a parking lot.
It did have windows, though, so we'll
It did have windows, so. And
let's
down, unfortunately.
Let's kick off the show here because we're getting a little weird, but we'll we've got some good topics today. I mean, the basketball world's kind of buzzing right now. First thing we're going to discuss is Serge Ibaka was originally diagnosed to be out for the season following that second-round series. Wasn't going to play against the Spurs. Missed the first two games. I want to say it was 51 or 52 points total that the Spurs beat the Thunder in two games. I think it was like a 15 or 17-point game one differential, and then they won by like 32 in game two. Then Ibaka, kind of like Paul Pierce after he was carted out in a wheelchair, comes flying back through the tunnel. His leg all of a sudden is fine, and now the Spurs players, Spurs fans, whoever, everybody's screaming that he's on something, on some PEDs. I don't want to say he is, but who knows? I mean, he did have that Adrian Peterson-like return real fast, faster than anybody expected, and it made a difference in games 3 and 4. Game 5, not so much. Game 5, it looks like Ibaka's not on anything anymore. So, Frank, let's kick it off here. What do you think? First of all, about the difference Ibaka brings to the Thunder team, especially against the Spurs, and because I think they were 6-0 against the Spurs before last night when Ibaka played.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Ibaka makes a huge difference, not only defensively, but also offensively. He helps spread the floor because they really don't have another guy that can hit that. I mean, Ibaka can hit a three, but, even spread the floor at 18 feet, 20 feet, they don't have that guy aside from Ibaka as a big man. So, I mean, I think he definitely helps in that respect. I mean, defensively, obviously, he's a difference maker. And I thought Pop's adjustment last night of having Matt Bonner start, or really the main adjustment he made, too, was not having Thiago Splitter and Tim Duncan on the court at the same time ever. So basically, it's either Boris Diaw or Matt Bonner at the 4 and Tim Duncan or Thiago Splitter at the 5 to kind of get Ibaka out a little bit, but also to spread the floor. I thought that was a huge adjustment. As far as the PED thing goes, I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that it's not a possibility. I'm not going to be like, I wouldn't be shocked if like a story came out that Serge Ibaka was on PEDs. It wouldn't like floor me. But at the same time, I mean, there's really no evidence, obviously, that he is. Mark Pace, who writes for us for Pass the Pill there, says that in cycling, he's a cyclist, and I don't want to misquote him, but basically he said in cycling, the calf injury is very common. And obviously in cycling, PEDs are very prominent, more than probably any other sport in the world.
Shout out to Lance Armstrong.
Yeah. So, and he said that guys that come back from calf injuries usually are on PEDs. Now, I mean, I don't know how that parallels to Serge Ibaka's injury and a basketball injury aside from a cycling injury, but I mean, I think it's worth noting. But yeah, I mean, Serge Ibaka makes a huge difference, but I still think I love when people overreact to playoff series. It's funny, like if you could see somebody's time, like if you follow somebody's Twitter feed, like between each game, they'd be like, "Oh my God, the Spurs are going to sweep them. Oh my God, OKC's going to win. No, is Kevin Durant the next dynasty?" It's like, and then like Game 5 happens, and it's a big series. It's a series we always thought was going 7. It's going to go back and forth, and I think that's just what you're seeing now.
Yeah, and I mean to be clear, I typically listen to Drake when I'm sad or depressed. But it doesn't mean every time I listen to Drake, I'm sad or depressed. So I feel kind of the same way as Frank about the PEDs thing. Sure, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked tomorrow if it came out that Steve Blake was on performance-enhancing drugs, because it's just that's how common it is, even though I don't expect it from him because he doesn't appear to be. But, in Ibaka's case, what I do want to say is people need to think in that gray area sometimes. Maybe the guy he's young, he's in extremely good shape, they have excellent trainers at the professional level of sports. Maybe he just healed quickly. I mean, this does happen once in a while. But on the flip side of that, yeah, we're not naive. Michael, your thoughts on Serge Ibaka, his impact on this series, and the likelihood that he might be cheating?
Well, I don't know if you guys remember 2 weeks ago when I publicly, voiced my opinion on this series, saying that there was going to be no such thing as a Game 5 here, especially with Ibaka not playing. And, as we saw, he ends up playing, and I don't know what it is about, big men proving me wrong. I think I did the same thing with Roy Hibbert. He goes and drops like 30-something that one time.
Well, the telltale with Roy is if he scores 0, the next game he's going to make an impact.
Oh, yeah, well, so we're waiting for that one. But it's obvious that, now we're starting to see why James Harden was traded, why Oklahoma City Brass picked Serge Ibaka over James Harden because of all the stuff that he brings. I mean, if James Harden would have stayed, let's say James Harden was in this series instead of Serge Ibaka, I don't think we'd be having this discussion right now. I think we'd be sitting here talking about, a possibility of how bad the Spurs just destroyed Oklahoma City with their size. But obviously Ibaka is one of those people that's able to control the middle of the court. Like Frank said, he's able to spread things out. He can hit ridiculous threes for, a guy who usually is like 7'1", 7'2", something like that. 6'11".
Serge? He's like 6'9", 6'10", maybe.
Yeah, all right. I was trying to help the guy out.
He's like Durant, but muscular.
You're like Shaq. You're like Shaq, who calls Dwight Howard 7'2", telling him he needs to dominate. Dwight Howard like 6'9".
Shaq. Hey, Dwight Howard. You know what you do? You go in. You dominate. You go in, hit a free throw.
You get your icy hot back pitch.
Yeah. The big Shaq. Anyways, forget Shaq.
We both just terrible
Shaq
impressions.
Or Aristotle anymore. Nobody cares about the big
Yeah, those are pretty bad.
The point is this. If Serge Ibaka is on PEDs and the fact that I am starting to grow into a mind of a sports conspiracy theorist, who cares? I mean, it's getting to the point where it's like, oh, somebody's not on PEDs right now? Shocking! Oh my God! Especially in baseball, man. Like who? No, but personally, no, I don't think he was on PEDs. I'm kind of leaning towards Andy on this one. I think they found a way to, the trainers did a great job getting him back on the floor, and it obviously rejuvenated Oklahoma City at home. But somehow or another, if this goes to 7 games, Oklahoma City has got to do a much better job of playing in San Antonio, because if they keep playing, it's now like in 3 games, it's been a combined win differential of 80 points for San Antonio. 80 in 3 games. That is
what's crazy is
horrible.
This series has been strangely entertaining considering every single game's been a blowout.
A blowout, yeah, I was going to say. Thunder win, too, and it's in dramatic fashion.
Yeah. I've gotten to the point, honestly, the only athlete in all of sports that I would be like legitimately surprised if he wasn't on PEDs is Derek Jeter. I don't know, I mean, because I was a Yankee fan growing up, and Derek Jeter's always been like that all-American, like boy next door kind of thing. And I guess that's pretty much the only athlete that I would be like legitimately surprised if somebody was like Derek Jeter's on steroids. I'd be like, no.
But they did try to say it last year. Remember that? People were saying he was last year.
So Frank, you'd be surprised if somebody said, if LeBron James was, said, oh yeah, I use steroids. You'd be surprised?
No, I'm saying I would not. I would not be surprised unless it's Derek Jeter. I mean, LeBron's a freak. I mean, if you want to tell me LeBron's on steroids, I wouldn't be like, well, I mean, it makes sense because physically he's like not even human. So if you're taking performance-enhancing drugs, that makes sense. But no, I'm not accusing LeBron James of being on steroids. I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me.
I forgot that in Game 5.
So let's jump into let's jump out of the player aspect of this and into the executive, the owner perspective of basketball. We all know Donald Sterling got caught slipping. I do want to mention again that the girlfriend that recorded him is a worse human being than he is by tenfold. Racism aside, she's so bad. But so now it looks like Steve Ballmer, the ex-Microsoft, whatever the heck he was, executive or CEO, also the guy behind trying to steal away the Kings last summer, is now put in a reported bid of like $2 billion for the Clippers. And I think I read that Sterling originally bought the Clippers for $12 million. So
Yep.
way to get your cake up. Yeah, $2 billion. Let's talk about that a little bit. And maybe we talked about this a little before the show, before we were recording. But I know a lot of people's thoughts are now that the Clippers would move to Seattle, home of Starbucks, the 12th man, rain, a big space needle. But let's go into that first, Frank. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, first off, I don't know who I'm more jealous of, the guy that made a $12 million investment and now has $2 billion, or the guy that could pay $2 billion for a team and still have $18 billion left over. So, I mean,
it's the latter.
You know, who knows? But I don't think they're going to Seattle. I don't think you pay $2 billion for a team and then depreciate their value by moving them from L.A., Los Angeles, to Seattle, which you just said is most prominently known for Starbucks coffee and raining a lot. So I don't think the sunny skies of L.A.
That's how they
really
make their coffee, with rainwater.
I mean, if you want to throw Grey's Anatomy in there too, they're known for that. I mean, that's where Grey's Anatomy is. But whatever. Listen, I think it's going to happen. This Sterling story is just crazy to me. I just think every day there's just something else that happens. It's like Donald Sterling's gotten to the point. I hate to make this comparison, but he's gotten to the Aaron Hernandez point in media where you're just like, whenever you see his name come across the bottom of your screen, you're just like, oh my God, what the hell happened now? Like, did he murder somebody? Is he in jail? What's going on? And I mean, the whole story's crazy. I think they stay in LA, and I think they'll be just fine with the billionaire owner. I think he'll spend money too, because I think he's been trying to get in the NBA for such a long time that he'll be the exact opposite of Donald Sterling, where he's trying to pinch pennies. I think he really wants to make a splash.
Yeah, and I think before we talked before the show, I think I kind of was torn, because I was thinking the same thing as Frank. It's almost like when a player lands in LA, or they land in Boston or Miami, and then, like Dwight Howard did actually with the Lakers, he was like, I think I'd rather go play in Houston. Like, that's kind of a rare thing. Most of the time when these players get in the large market, they want to stay there, and it'd be the same for somebody buying a team. Why would you go from LA, which has 4 or 5 million people, to Seattle, who has 500,000 people or 700,000 people or whatever they have? The market, you're kind of you're getting in the way of your money making, I guess, essentially is what I want to say. Even though the Seattle fans have proven to be great over the years. But Michael, let's get your thoughts here.
Apparently Frank has also forgotten that this band called Nirvana. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Nirvana, but they kind of came from Seattle. They seem to be all right.
You don't want to test my gangster on Nirvana.
Oh, please.
You'll learn something.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, the first thing that old Steve's got to do is he's got to put everything Donald Sterling behind him. Obviously it happened. Everybody has just got to move on from it now. And don't move the team to Seattle, man. That's stupid. I mean, seriously, you think that if you move LA from Seattle, or if you move LA to Seattle, what are you going to do? Get DeKale Shrimp to come back on the court? No. You just don't do that. Besides,
disrespectful to Seattle. It's not Wyoming, dude.
Nothing good. Hey, there was nothing wrong with DeKale Shrimp. Him and Gary Payton were geniuses, man. That was basketball. Gotta love it. Anyways.
Payton?
Dude, you gotta love Gary Payton, man. I loved Gary Payton, except when he put on a Lakers jersey. That was awful. I got
love for the glove.
On a Lakers jersey. That was awful. Anyways, back to my point. My point is this. Steve's got a chance to make a lot of money. He may have paid $2 billion for it, but this is a perennial contender right now. Not only that, but with the Lakers being in a just sad state of disarray, he has the ability to make money here, even more money than he bought the team for. I mean, you're right. I'm more jealous of this guy for being able to have $2 billion and still having $18 million left over with the ability to make that $2 billion back and then some than Donald Sterling, who only spent $12 million and got $2 billion out of it. I mean, that's ridiculous. I wish I had that. I wish I had a tenth of that money.
Frank made a good point before the show as well. You know, he said the Clippers have a real chance of becoming like America's darling story right now. And I feel like if you spend $2 billion on a team, get them their own arena. Stop having them share at the Staples Center because it's never going to be their arena. There's always going to be, you know, Lakers greats hanging from the rafters. You know, you got to set the course to start moving the gears on your own legacy, build your own thing, and I think now is a great opportunity for that.
And even the LA Kings banners are hanging there. The LA Kings Stanley Cup championship next to retired jerseys are there as well. So they also have to look up to that because I mean,
I love when Michael tries to act like everybody cares about hockey.
Yeah, well, you know,
I just feel like it's like
do what you can.
I don't know. I never. It's like when a guy's been married for 20 or 30 years, and then him and his wife get a divorce, and then he gets remarried shortly thereafter and tries to move the new wife into the old wife's home. I mean,
right?
It just generally doesn't mesh that well. I think they need a new start. So let's jump into. We're kind of talking about buffoonery.
I just want to make one last point about the whole Sterling thing. Is that if we've learned any lesson here, it's that you married men, stay faithful. That side chick, she will get you, and she will win.
Scorn. Nothing's worse than a woman scorn. So let's jump into the buffoonery, to quote Ray Allen, the buffoonery of Lance Stephenson here. So the internet is killing Lance Stephenson with these memes right now. I saw him blowing a
Nintendo cartridge,
blowing a Nintendo cartridge, blowing out birthday candles on a cake. The best part for me was LeBron James' reaction when Lance Stephenson blew in his ear, where he kind of didn't. It was kind of delayed, and he, just kind of shook his head like, "Yo, that had what is this? What is Clown Shoes doing?" written all over his face, LeBron James. So, and the worst thing about Lance Stephenson is like, "Yo, you the first two games." Lance was like everything to the Pacers, in my personal opinion. I thought, Paul George had a good game one, but Lance Stephenson for those first two games was consistent. But then Lance Stephenson's had, I don't know what he had in game three, but it wasn't good, like 2 or 3 points. And then he had 12 in the infamous blowing his ear game. And he attacked LeBron, and LeBron went nuts. And what's Lance Stephenson doing? He vowed to be good. Frank, what's he doing?
Listen, all I know is that in a world of uncertainty, one thing I know 100% for certain is that Lance is not playing with the whole deck. I mean, the dude's just off. I don't even need any proof. You just know it. You watch him play. You just hear him in the media. Like the dude he's missing a screw. I do want to celebrate the internet for a third round KO via meme on Lance Stephenson. The blow memes were just incredible. I think what you're seeing is, something that I said that would happen. I thought it would be sooner, but you can't have you need one alpha dog on your team, right? So for the Pacers, that has to be Paul George. But then you have this Lance Stephenson who thinks he's the alpha dog, but it's almost like if he could play like the Jamal Crawford role, like Jamal Crawford plays for the Clippers, where sometimes they're just like, all right, Jamal, here's the ball. It's your time now for the next 5 minutes. We're gonna go to you. But Lance looks at LeBron James guarding him. He's like, oh, it's a mismatch. I'm gonna take him.
Yeah.
But dude, Lance, LeBron's the best defense player in the league. But Lance is just so confident that he just thinks everything's a mismatch. And I think you see getting back to on the court that it really hurts the Pacers because then what happens is the ball sticks because Lance is just trying to dribble, getting people to set picks for him, and it throws everybody off. Paul George is just sitting in the corner without the ball, having no idea what to do. Then Roy Hibbert gets frustrated, and then he's calling for the ball on the block, even though, I probably have as many post moves as Roy Hibbert does. So, it just throws the whole team off. Everybody gets frustrated, and it's just not good. I think that's why you're going to see Lance leave. I don't think Lance is going to be on the Pacers when it's all said and done.
They have 3 alpha dogs, too, because I think Roy Hibbert believes he's the best player on the team as well. But, yeah, Lance is killing me because I do like Lance, but in his defense, the Jamal Crawford thing's perfect because I think at that age, Jamal Crawford was the same dude. I mean, he thought he was the best player on the court. I still think he believes he's the best player on the court at some points, but he's like
absolutely.
He's bought in. Somebody sold him on winning. So, yeah, Michael, go ahead. Get him.
Well,
Get him.
I'm still waiting for the meme that has, Lance, we could be this right now, and it's got somebody holding up, the championship trophy, but at the bottom it says, "But you playing." I mean, I don't understand what this guy's deal is right now. He's trying to get in the heads of, anybody from LeBron James. He's probably trying to get into Birdman's head right now, and it's just not even working. He's trying too hard. It really is. I agree with you, Frank. It's becoming a distraction to this Pacers team, and it's getting to the point where his antics on the court and what he's saying and the things that he's doing off the court are totally overtaking the fact that Indiana barely won Game 5. Like, it was barely. I mean, this was a team we all remember 3-4 months ago. We thought we're going to run away with everything. I mean, it was at the point where they were like 35 games over 500 or 40 games over 500 or something.
No, they looked like the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, and then the wheels came off. And they've never been able to recover. And I honestly do not think that Lance Stephenson is helping. I mean, who blows in people's ear anymore? I mean, seriously. Like, what are you trying
I still can't get over that.
That's something Drake would do. Drake's doing that to somebody right now.
Yeah,
you really blew it.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna. This is exactly what this is. This is the next thing I want to see. I want to see the Browns and the Texans play, and I want to see Jadeveon Clowney sack Johnny Manziel, and I want him to blow in Johnny Manziel's ear right after, and then see what happens. Like, I think that's going to become a thing. It is going to become a thing you watch. Now, just think. Okay, let's backtrack a while ago. You guys remember when MJ ran down the court and shrugged his shoulders? What if he would have went over and blowed in Clyde the Glide Drexler's ear? How cool would that? That would be hilarious.
Blowed?
Yeah,
blown. In English.
Blown.
You're talking about sacking a quarterback, and it reminds me of a few years ago. Aaron Rodgers used to say that Kyle Vanden Bosch from the Lions, the defensive end, did some really weird stuff. Like, he wore those red contacts, if you remember correctly. But right. I guess Rodgers said he would sack you, and then he would just lay there on top of you and be like, ooh, you like that? You like that? So I'm assuming that he also blew into his ear.
He was like John Randall, but more creepy.
Very creepy. Imagine, just think about Kyle Vanden Bosch. He's huge. He's got the bald dome, the red contacts, and he's going, ooh, you like that when he's laying on you? Like, that would scar me for life.
That sounds like something like that coming out of a Law & Order Special Victims Unit episode, man. That's just disturbing.
That might be something.
Listen, there's a terrible Michael Sam joke there that I'm not going to make, but anyways.
You just did.
I know. Anyways, to highlight the Pacers' dysfunction, I thought the highlight of the whole thing, first, Game 5 had so many hilarious moments with Lance Stephenson in the heat huddle blowing in people's ears, but I thought the highlight was with less than a minute left in the game, is they're trying to inbound the ball, and Lance Stephenson falls down, and Roy Hibbert is trying to help Lance Stephenson up, and Lance Stephenson's kicking him away. While the play is going on, Paul George has the ball about to get triple teamed, and Lance Stephenson and Roy Hibbert are just fighting, basically on the court mid-play. It was just, if you didn't see that, you might have missed it because it ended up in that George Hill layup that LeBron James blocked. But if you missed that, you should go back and watch it. It was absolutely hilarious.
Lance Stephenson has these moments where what it reminds me of is when Jason Kidd early on in his coaching tenure this season, early on he had the drink and the run into me, hit me.
Yeah.
Like, everything Lance Stephenson does reminds me of that. It's like when Lance fell, what you're talking about with Hibbert, I think Lance had some sort of a plan to get the game delayed or a foul called or something. I don't know what he was doing. He was just like, nah, leave me. They think I'm dead. He's kicking them. It reminds me of this time as a kid. You remember the game Release you would play, and we used to play with this kid. And he was a nice kid. He was a couple years younger than me. And he was a terrible hider. He would just hide. I think, he might have been a little slow, but he would hide, in the most obvious spots. So we get done counting as a team, and we go, 20 steps, and there he is under this car, broad daylight. You could see him from where you stood up at. And I look at him, I'm like, man, what are you doing? He's like, don't find me. That's him in a nutshell. He thinks he has like some elaborate scheme he's going to pull off, and it never works. But the fact of the matter is LeBron James scored 2 field goals, one in the first, one in the fourth. He had 7 points. I think he had 16 fouls, and the Pacers almost blew that. There were 2 50-50 calls. That inbound with Battier, I thought on any given day the referees could have called that off Paul George. And then when they got tangled up, I thought any given day that could have been a charge just as easily as it was a block. Don't get me wrong, I'm not upset with those calls. I think they were fine. But they could have went either way. And Bosch blows a 3. I mean, that game could have been very different for the Pacers. And how big would that have been for the Heat if they would have won off 7 points, behind 7 points from LeBron James? I mean, that's like...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to me, there was nothing that happened in Game 5 that doesn't make me think Miami's going to win Game 6 by 20 points.
Yeah, I think they're going to kill
that's what
them.
we said yesterday.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so let's jump into this last one, and this is a new segment from the Mind of Madness here. That's me. I kind of came up with something because we're going to be rolling into the off season, and I ran it by these guys, and everybody really seemed to think it was a cool idea. We're going to kind of play you be the GM, and I'm going to ask everybody, and I have my answer already figured out too. We're going to do this hopefully each week and try to figure out different questions, maybe go team to team, player to player, and run through some different scenarios, stuff to keep you guys entertained while basketball is on a hiatus. So this first week, we're going to roll with the you be the general manager, and it could be from the party of the Timberwolves or from a different team. Just a way to place Kevin Love somewhere else via trade. Obviously, I asked everybody to be realistic. I don't want to see, Kevin Love to Miami for LeBron James, because obviously the Heat aren't doing that. But let's go through this. Frank, I'm sure I know you've been working that trade machine hard. Your computer probably asked you to go take a break. Let's hear what you come up with.
So I'm gonna reference, because I know we discussed our answers before the show. So I'm gonna reference a couple teams that I came up with because I know I'm not stealing anybody's answer. I thought about Cleveland, but I don't think they want to give up the number 1 pick, and I think they're in like a weird stage with Kyrie, so I didn't opt for that. And then I thought about the one that really intrigued me was Golden State, because I think they have a lot of assets. I think Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, and David Lee for Kevin Love and Kevin Martin. I think that's a possibility. But I think Minnesota will try and keep him out of the Western Conference. So ultimately, I went with the Washington Wizards. Kevin Love for Bradley Beal, Otto Porter, and a number 1 pick in the 2016 draft, because they gave away their pick in this year's draft to Phoenix. So I think if you make that pick unprotected, who knows how good Washington's going to be with John Wall and Kevin Love. If you're Minnesota, they could very well be like an 8 seed, in the East, and that gets you a pretty decent pick. I always laugh at these people that don't want to give up. Like, I know a lot of Golden State people didn't want to give up Klay Thompson, and I know Jason Whitney's not going to want to give up Bradley Beal to get Kevin Love, but I mean, ultimately, if you have your superstar, like if you decide that John Wall is the best player on your team, and then you have another guy that's like a first-team All-NBA guy, like you give up pretty much anybody else to get him.
Yeah. So,
and I think John Wall and Kevin Love would be amazing. I mean, you got Wall penetrating the paint and Kevin Love cleaning up the boards, hitting threes. I mean, I think it would be incredible.
And let it be known that John Wall is a better passer than he is a scorer. I know people still get that confused sometimes. Before Michael goes, and before I give you mine as well, I did want to touch on something Frank mentioned there, and this is not necessarily just to do with Kevin Love, but anybody. Remember what the Knicks had to give up to get Carmelo Anthony a few years ago? Like, that was the king's ransom. They gave up picks. They gave up a stockpile of, some players that were kind of semi-established and some that weren't. And actually, I remember the Knicks really not wanting to give up Timothy Mozgov there. Like they didn't want to deal that guy. And look at him now. I mean, he's not really doing much of anything. So, Michael, let's hear your scenario here for Kevin Love. How are you bringing him to the Lakers?
Oh no, I'm not bringing him to the Lakers. Unfortunately, I tried to. And now, mind you, I tried to, but I've been playing with the trade machine I've been up since 8:30. So I was playing with the trade machine for like an hour and a half, trying to just work some things around. And there was no way on earth that I could make it realistically sending Kevin Love to the Lakers. So there's no way that's going to happen. At some point in time, I really did want to send him to Washington. I actually have, a couple scenarios where he goes to Washington. But for some odd reason, I kind of want to send him to Indiana. And I'll tell you why. Just because with all the stuff that's going on with, the Lance Stephenson shenanigans and, there's no real, consistency there. I kind of feel like that bringing in a guy like Kevin Love would kind of shore up some things about that. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, wait a minute. If Kevin Love comes in, he's going to start thinking he's the alpha dog. What's that going to do to Paul George? And what's that going to do with Roy Hibbert? And there's really no way to really, there's a way, but there's not really a way. So I'm actually going to send him to Washington as well. And I'm going to actually I'm going to send him to Ney. I'm going to send him Otto Porter Jr. And I'm going to send him at least 2 first-round picks. There was also a scenario where I threw in Ricky Rubio, and I gave up Trevor Ariza, Andre Miller, Otto Porter Jr., and multiple first-round picks to bring back Ricky Rubio and Kevin Love.
Your finer point, Michael, is keeping Wall and Beal and landing Love?
Yes.
Okay.
Somehow or another, it would be a way to get it done. Trade Machine says sending in Otto Porter Jr. to Minnesota for Kevin Love would work.
I think it works money-wise. I don't see a scenario where Minnesota takes that deal.
First-round picks thrown in there, plus a couple of other assets. Maybe Minnesota has to send over like a Shabazz Muhammad, and Washington would have to send over somebody else. It's in the works. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it was a start. It's like I got like 6 other scenarios, but
I won't strike you down for that. I kind of tend to be of the same frame of thought as Frank with the whole I think Minnesota's going to look at it and say, hey, we'll deal with you, but we need Wall or Beal. I just don't see them, because it's like when you do anything. In fantasy football, somebody could offer you a trade, but at the same time, you're looking at their roster saying, well, they have these players. I need to get one of these players, in return of one of my best players, or in this case, it's their best player.
I think I was looking at more money-wise with the Ney's contract being, as big as it is. They're trying to ship that out to bring in Kevin Love's deal.
Sure.
I think that was my main focus.
You have to have stuff going out to have stuff coming in. But my pick is going to be a little different. These guys both went with the Wizards ultimately. Frank mentioned the Cavs. Michael mentioned Indiana. We talked a little bit about Golden State. Golden State was one I thought about because they just have all kinds of assets to throw that way. The Phoenix Suns were one I mulled over a little bit, but I don't know that Kevin Love wants to be there. I ultimately settled with the Boston Celtics. To me, this was simple because they do have Rondo there, and I feel like you need to pair Kevin Love with somebody. I ultimately ended up with, let me pop this up on my screen here. There's a few hundred ways to tweak this with Boston, but I had a scenario where the Timberwolves sent Kevin Love and Kevin Martin over for Jeff Green, Brandon Bass, Kelly Olynyk, and then they gave up 3 first-round draft picks. I'm talking the 6 and the 17 from this year, and then I really wasn't sure on the 3rd one, but I can tell you what they do have. Boston has 2 first-rounders next year, their own, and an unprotected Clippers pick, which is sure to be in the 20s somewhere. And then they have an unprotected 2016 and 2018 from the Brooklyn Nets, and they also have the option to swap their 2017 with the Nets, and that's also unprotected. Geez, Frank, what were the Nets doing there? So there's essentially, besides the 2 they have this year, they have 5 other first-round draft picks, so they could throw one of them in there. And I feel like for Kevin Love, and you're getting Kevin Martin, who's a reliable shooter, throw those 2 in with Rondo, and that team's probably a playoff team next year, right? You'd have to imagine.
Oh, absolutely. I think Rondo and Kevin Love are probably a top 4 team in the East. I don't think that's unreasonable.
For sure. So, does anybody have any thoughts on anyone else's?
Try this one. Kevin Love and Shabazz Muhammad to Boston for Gerald Wallace, Brandon Bass, and you'd probably have to do a sign and trade with Avery Bradley.
But nobody wants Shabazz Muhammad though.
Nobody wants Gerald Wallace either.
Yeah, I had Gerald Wallace on mine at first too, but I started thinking,
I just think if you're Minnesota, you want a young guy that you think is gonna, you want a Bradley Beal or a Klay Thompson or somebody that you think, or if the Cleveland Cavaliers offer the number 1 pick, I think that's a no-brainer. I think you take the number 1 pick for Kevin Love,
Sure.
who is probably leaving. Probably leaving Minnesota.
Well, that's my thing.
So,
if you don't have Bradley Beal or Klay Thompson to offer them, that's why I'm saying with Boston, I think like you're giving up Olynyk, who could be a decent player. You give up Jeff Green, who has flashes. Bass is kind of the toss in there. But then you have those 3 picks. Like you're talking the 6 and the 17 in a draft that we know is pretty good right now. And then, later down the road, you probably get one of those Nets picks maybe the 16 or the 18. But who knows? In that amount of time, by 2018, the Nets could be the best team in the NBA or they could be the worst. We don't know.
Yeah.
I think, when you're thinking about teams, there's a lot of teams that have a lot of assets. Well, not a lot, but there's definitely a few. Like the Philadelphia 76ers could make a Godfather offer for Kevin Love. The Orlando Magic could make a great offer for Kevin Love. I just don't know. It's just a matter of what Minnesota wants. I just think Washington makes the best sense for both parties because not only can they offer you something that's worth having, but then Washington is also a talented team already, and Kevin Love can just put them over the top.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
honestly,
honestly, if it were me hearing these, like if I hear like Bradley Beal, a couple of decent guys, and 2 draft picks, I'm probably taking that over the Olynyk, Bass, Jeff Green, and picks from Boston. Honest to God, I mean, just because, and it's mostly just because of Bradley Beal. Because if I'm the T-Wolves, I'm thinking Bradley Beal might be a 20-point scorer. We don't know where his ceiling is, so I just feel like that's probably the one.
I think I'll be curious what Kevin Love's trade value is considering his contract situation. Is it a Dwight Howard situation where teams probably know he's leaving, so they're gonna take their chances in free agency, or is it like a Melo deal where they can get as much for him before he leaves?
And it depends. I mean, the Kings already said they're willing to rent him. I mean, what are the Kings doing? What's
they
going
don't
on
know.
with you guys? We'll rent
we've
Kevin
been
Love.
asking that ever since Chris Webber left. What are the Kings doing? You know what I mean?
I don't know. They're crazy. They need to like hire the Tim Donaghy dude, that referee, to like do something for them, work pro bono for screwing them out of that finals bid against the Lakers back then. All right, so
Sure.
I think we're starting to get into shenanigans a little bit here now, so it's a good time to end the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the new category, the Be a GM thing. I think we had some fun with that. It's a nice little interactive twist on this show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. On behalf of myself, Frank, Michael, everybody at the SK Network, make sure you jump on over to www.sports-kings.com. Read our stuff, leave some comments. You can also find us on Twitter @RealSportsKings, or just type in Sports-Kings on Facebook, and you can find us there. Until next time, have a great day.